The planet Arethys was a cold, empty place. It sat far away from other stars, forgotten by the rest of the universe. The ground was cracked and dry, covered in gray dust that blew with the wind. Above, the sky was always dark, filled with thick clouds that blocked out the light. No one knew how long it had been since the last rain fell, or when the sun last shone through. This was the world where the Vorthons lived. The Vorthons were not always like this. Long ago, they had big cities, bright lights, and machines that could do almost anything. But then came the Great War, a war so terrible that it destroyed everything. Now all that remained were small groups of people living under domes made of metal and glass. These domes kept them safe from the poisonous air outside. Life inside was hard, but at least it was life. Kale was one of the leaders of the Vorthons. He was tall and strong, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. His face carried lines of worry, marks left by years of trying to keep his people alive. Every day, he sent scouts out to search for food, water, and scraps of old technology they could use. Resources were scarce, and every little thing mattered. One morning, two young scouts named Lyra and Joran set off on their usual mission. Lyra was quick and curious, always asking questions about the ruins they explored. Joran was quieter, more careful, and good at fixing things. They worked well together, balancing each other's strengths. Today, they headed toward an area they hadn't visited before, an ancient city swallowed by time. As they walked through the broken streets, Lyra noticed something unusual. There was a large hole in the ground, much bigger than any crater she'd seen before. "Look over there," she said, pointing. Joran followed her gaze and nodded. Together, they approached cautiously. Inside the crater, pieces of twisted metal lay scattered everywhere. Some parts were blackened, as if burned by fire. Others gleamed faintly, untouched by rust, despite being buried for who knows how long. Lyra bent down and picked up a shard. It felt strange in her hand, smooth yet heavy. Carved into its surface were symbols unlike anything she recognized. "What do you think these are?" Lyra asked, holding the piece up for Joran to see. Joran frowned, turning it over in his hands. "I don't know. They're not like our writing." Lyra looked closer. The symbols seemed to form patterns that reminded her of stars. But none of the shapes matched the constellations she knew from the night sky. A chill ran down her spine. "Do you think maybe someone else made this?" Joran hesitated. "No one comes here. Everyone knows that. We're alone." But even as he said it, doubt lingered in his voice. Something about the object didn't feel right. It wasn't old like the other relics they found. It looked new, too new. "Let's take it back," Lyra said finally. "Kel should see this." They gathered a few more pieces and hurried home. When they arrived, Kale listened carefully as they explained what they'd found. He examined the fragments silently, his brow furrowed. Whatever this was, it raised questions he didn't have answers to, questions that made him uneasy. For now, the Vorthons would watch the skies. For the first time in centuries, they wondered, were they truly alone? Days passed, and the Vorthons went about their usual routines, but the discovery of the strange metal pieces weighed heavily on everyone's minds. Kale had ordered extra patrols around the settlement, though he wasn't sure what they were looking for. Still, something in his gut told him to stay alert. The symbols on the metal were unlike anything anyone had ever seen, and the idea that someone, or something, might be out there was unsettling. Then it happened. One evening, as the wind howled outside the dome, a loud rumble shook the ground. At first, people thought it was another storm, or maybe an earthquake. But when the shaking grew stronger, panic spread. Lyra ran to the edge of the dome with Joran close behind. Through the thick glass, they saw flashes of light in the sky. Bright streaks cut through the clouds like falling stars. But these weren't natural. "What is that?" Joran whispered, his voice trembling. Before anyone could answer, the lights grew closer. Dozens of sleek, metallic ships descended from above, their engines roaring like thunder. They moved with precision, hovering over the barren landscape before landing near the settlement. The Vorthans stared in shock, unsure whether to run or fight. No one had ever seen anything like this before. Kale stepped forward, gripping his weapon tightly. He signaled for calm, though his own heart raced. "Stay back," he ordered the others. Then, raising his hand slowly, he approached the nearest ship. A hatch opened, and figures emerged. They wore shiny armor that reflected the dim light, and their faces were hidden behind helmets. For a moment, no one spoke. Finally, one of the figures removed her helmet, revealing a human face. She had short brown hair and sharp green eyes that scanned the crowd. "We mean no harm," she said in a clear, steady voice. Her words came through some kind of device that translated them into the Vorthan language. "My name is Rachel Hayes. We're survivors from Earth." The Vorthans exchanged confused glances. Earth? What was Earth? And why were these strangers here? Rachel explained that their planet had been destroyed in a war with an alien race called the Cytherians. Their fleet had been fleeing across the galaxy when their navigation systems failed, leaving them stranded on Arathis. She asked for help, promising to share their knowledge and resources in return. Not everyone trusted her. Some Vorthans whispered angrily, accusing the humans of lying. Others argued that helping them might bring danger. Kale listened carefully, weighing the risks. In the end, he agreed to let the humans stay, for now. But he made it clear, if they caused trouble, they would have to leave. Over the next few days, the humans began settling in. They set up camp near the dome, using their advanced tools to repair broken equipment and gather supplies. Among them was Jake, a quiet man with dark hair and a gentle demeanor. Unlike some of the others, he didn't act superior or demanding. Instead, he spent time observing the Vorthans, learning about their ways. Lyra noticed him often wandering off alone. One day, she decided to follow him. She found him examining the ruins where she and Joran had discovered the metal pieces. When he saw her, he smiled faintly and held up a fragment. "You found this, didn't you?" She nodded, surprised he knew. "How did you know?" "I've seen markings like these before," he said. "Back on Earth. They're part of an old system we use to track stars." Lyra frowned. "So, you think your people made this?" Jake hesitated. "Maybe. Or maybe someone else did. Either way, it's important." They talked for a while longer, sharing bits of their worlds. Lyra learned that Jake had lost his family in the war and joined the fighters to honor their memory. In turn, she told him about the Great War that had devastated Arathis. Though they came from different places, they realized they had more in common than they thought. As the days went on, tensions between the Vorthans and humans remained high. Many Vorthans resented the newcomers' advanced technology, while some humans looked down on the Vorthans as primitive. But Lyra and Jake continued meeting in secret, determined to bridge the gap between their peoples. Little did they know, their bond would soon become crucial, not just for friendship, but for survival. As the days turned into weeks, life in the settlement became a mix of cooperation and tension. The humans brought tools and machines that amazed the Vorthans. Their devices could purify water faster, repair broken equipment, and even grow small amounts of food inside special containers. For the first time in years, the Vorthans had more than just enough to survive. But not everyone was happy about it. Some Vorthans felt uneasy accepting help from outsiders. They whispered among themselves, saying the humans were too proud, too different. "They'll take everything we have," one man muttered during a gathering. "And then they'll leave us worse off than before." On the other hand, some humans didn't trust the Vorthans either. A few soldiers mocked their simple clothes and old-fashioned ways. "Look at them," one soldier named Ryan said loudly while fixing a generator. "They're stuck in the past. What can they possibly teach us?" Despite these tensions, there were moments of connection. Jake spent most of his time working alongside Lyra and Joran. Together, they explored the ruins outside the dome, searching for anything useful. One day, They stumbled upon an underground chamber hidden beneath layers of rubble. Inside, they found strange machines covered in dust. Though broken, the machines looked far more advanced than anything the Vorthons currently used. "This is incredible," Jake said, running his fingers over the smooth metal surface. "If we can fix this, it could change everything." Lyra nodded, her eyes wide with excitement. "Do you think you can make it work?" "I don't know yet," Jake admitted, "but I'd like to try. With your help." Meanwhile, Elena, one of the human medics, worked tirelessly to care for both humans and Vorthons. She treated wounds, shared medicine, and taught basic first aid to anyone willing to learn. Slowly, she earned the trust of many Vorthons, including Kale. One evening, as she bandaged a cut on Joran's arm, he asked her a question that had been bothering him. "Why did you come here?" Joran asked softly. "You could have stayed safe on your ships." Elena paused, choosing her words carefully. "We didn't have a choice. Our home is gone. We're trying to start over, just like you." Her honesty touched Joran, and he began to see the humans in a new light. Maybe they weren't so different after all. Back at the camp, Captain Rachel Hayes struggled to keep her people united. Some of her soldiers grew restless, eager to move on and find another planet. Others argued that staying put them in danger. During a heated meeting, one soldier named Marcus slammed his fist on the table. "We can't stay here forever. This place is dying, just like Earth." Rachel stood firm. "And where would we go?" "Out there," she pointed to the dark sky, "is nothing but emptiness. At least here, we have a chance." The debate continued late into the night, but no clear decision was made. Frustrated, Rachel walked outside to clear her head. That's when she saw Lyra and Jake standing near the edge of the dome, talking quietly. Curious, she approached them. "What are you two up to?" she asked with a faint smile. Jake glanced at Lyra before answering. "We found something, an old machine. If we can get it working, it might help everyone." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "Help how?" "It's hard to explain," Lyra said quickly, "but it's important. Trust me." Though skeptical, Rachel agreed to let them try. Deep down, she hoped their efforts would bring the two groups closer together. Unity was crucial if they wanted to survive, not just against the harsh environment, but against whatever else might be out there. Unbeknownst to all of them, danger loomed on the horizon. Far above Arathis, faint signals traveled through space, carrying a message meant for enemies. The Exatherians were coming, and when they arrived, neither the Vorthons nor the humans would be ready. Elena wasn't sure what made her check the old drone again. It had been sitting in a corner of the repair tent for days, half forgotten. Most of the humans thought it was beyond fixing, but something about its design caught her attention. The drone was small, no bigger than a backpack, with blinking lights that flickered weakly. She decided to take one last look. As she opened the casing, she noticed a tiny chip embedded deep inside. It didn't match the rest of the drone's parts. It looked newer, almost out of place. Her curiosity grew, and she carefully removed the chip to examine it closer. When she plugged it into a portable scanner, lines of code appeared on the screen. At first, they seemed like nonsense, but then she spotted something alarming. Coordinates. The numbers corresponded to Earth's fleet, the same fleet that had fled the Exatherians. But there was more. Buried within the data were logs detailing the Exatherians' tracking systems. Elena's heart sank as she read the words over and over. The human ships weren't just damaged. They carried hidden beacons designed to emit signals. These signals could lead the Exatherians straight to them. "No," she whispered, her hands trembling. "This can't be happening." She knew she couldn't keep this to herself. Grabbing the chip and the scanner, she hurried to find Kale. He was overseeing repairs near the dome when she approached him. His expression shifted from calm to concerned as he saw the urgency in her face. "What is it?" he asked. Elena took a deep breath. "I found something bad. Our ships, They have trackers on them. The Exetherians can follow those signals. That means they might already know we're here. Kel's jaw tightened. For a moment, he said nothing, staring at the ground as if weighing his next move. Finally, he looked up. Does Rachel know about this? She doesn't, Elena admitted. I wanted to tell you first. Kale nodded slowly. We need to talk to her. Now. They found Rachel near the human camp, talking with a group of soldiers. When she saw the serious looks on their faces, she dismissed the others immediately. What's going on? She demanded. Elena explained everything. The chip, the logs, the beacons. As she spoke, Rachel's face turned pale. When she finished, silence hung heavy in the air. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Rachel finally asked, her voice sharp. We didn't know. Elena replied, frustration creeping into her tone. These things were built into our systems without us realizing. We thought we'd escaped. But Rachel clenched her fists, anger flashing in her eyes. You should have checked. You should have. Enough, Kale interrupted, his voice firm. Blaine won't help us now. What matters is what we do next. Rachel sighed, running a hand through her hair. After a long pause, she spoke again. You're right. If the Exetherians are coming, we need to prepare. But disabling those beacons isn't easy. It'll take time. Time we may not have, Kale said grimly. Word of the discovery spread quickly, sparking fear and anger among both groups. Some Vorthans accused the humans of lying, claiming they had brought danger to their world on purpose. Others argued that staying put would only lead to disaster. Inside the human camp, tensions boiled over as well. Soldiers shouted at each other, debating whether to flee or fight. Amid the chaos, Jake and Lyra continued working on the machine they'd found in the ruins. They barely noticed the commotion around them, focused instead on piecing together its inner workings. Slowly, they began to understand how it functioned. It was a weapon, a powerful one. Though ancient, it still held potential. This could work, Jake said, his voice filled with cautious hope. If we can power it up, we might stand a chance. Lyra nodded, her mind racing. But will anyone listen? Everyone's too busy arguing. Jake frowned, knowing she was right. Still, they pressed on, determined to finish what they'd started. Together, they scavenged parts from both human and Vorthan supplies, cobbling together a makeshift energy source. By the end of the day, the machine hummed faintly, its lights flickering to life. Unbeknownst to them, distant sensors picked up faint energy signatures approaching Arathis. The Exetherians had detected the beacon signals, and they were closing in fast. Time was running out. The first sign of trouble came at dawn. The sky, usually dark and lifeless, lit up with strange flashes of green and purple. At first, the Vorthans thought it was another storm, but the humans knew better. Rachel stood near the edge of the dome, her eyes scanning the horizon. Her face was pale, her hands gripping the railing tightly. They're here, she said quietly, almost to herself. Kale joined her moments later, his expression grim. How long do we have? Not long, Rachel replied. Minutes, maybe less. Panic spread quickly through the settlement. People scrambled to gather weapons, food, and supplies. The humans activated their remaining ships, preparing for a fight they weren't sure they could win. Meanwhile, the Vorthans fortified the dome, stacking metal sheets and debris to create barriers. No one spoke much. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut. Jake and Lyra worked feverishly to finish setting up the ancient weapon they'd repaired. It now stood in the center of the ruins, its surface glowing faintly. They had managed to connect it to a power source, but neither of them was certain it would work. Still, it was their only hope. We need to test it, Jake said, wiping sweat from his brow. Lyra shook her head. There's no time. We'll just have to trust it. As if on cue, the ground began to shake. Distant roars echoed across the barren landscape as massive Exetherian warships descended from the sky. These ships were unlike anything the Vorthons or humans had ever seen. Huge, insect-like structures with jagged edges and glowing red eyes that scanned the ground below. Smaller drones poured out of the ships, swarming toward the settlement like locusts. Rachel barked orders to her soldiers, organizing them into defensive positions. "Hold the line," she shouted. "We can't let them breach the dome." Cale did the same for the Vorthons, urging them to stay calm and focused. "Fight together," he yelled. "We're stronger as one." The battle began with a deafening crash. The drones attacked relentlessly, their sharp limbs tearing through metal and glass. Humans fired energy rifles while Vorthons used crude weapons made from scrap. Despite their differences, both groups fought side by side, driven by desperation. In the chaos, Jake and Lyra stayed near the ancient weapon, waiting for the right moment to activate it. Jake held a small control panel in his hands, his fingers hovering over the buttons. "Now or never," he muttered. Lyra nodded. "Do it." With a deep breath, Jake pressed the button. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the machine roared to life, emitting a blinding beam of light that shot into the sky. The beam struck one of the Exitherian ships, causing it to shudder violently before exploding in a burst of flames. Cheers erupted from the defenders, but the victory was short-lived. More drones swarmed in, overwhelming the makeshift defenses. Casualties mounted on both sides, and the situation grew dire. Rachel led a counterattack, rallying her troops to push back against the invaders. She moved with fierce determination, firing her rifle with precision. Nearby, Cale fought just as bravely, wielding a long spear with skill. Together, they inspired their people to keep going, even as exhaustion set in. Amid the fighting, Jake noticed a group of drones heading straight for the weapon. If they destroyed it, all would be lost. Without hesitation, he ran toward them, drawing their attention away from the machine. He fired his pistol wildly, shouting to distract them. "Jake, no." Lyra screamed, but it was too late. One of the drones lunged at him, knocking him to the ground. Before it could strike again, Lyra charged forward, swinging a piece of broken metal like a club. She hit the drone hard, sending it crashing to the ground. But more were coming. Jake struggled to his feet, blood dripping from a wound on his side. "Get back to the weapon," he told Lyra. "Keep it safe." Tears filled her eyes as she hesitated, but she obeyed, knowing he was right. As she turned away, Jake faced the approaching drones alone, ready to give everything for the cause. Above, the remaining Exitherian ships circled ominously, preparing for another wave of attacks. The defenders braced themselves, knowing this was far from over. But for the first time, they truly stood united, not as humans or Vorthons, but as survivors fighting for a shared future. The battle raged on, each moment more desperate than the last. The defenders fought with everything they had, but the Exitherians seemed endless. Drones swarmed like angry insects, their sharp limbs tearing through barriers and weapons alike. Explosions lit up the dark sky, shaking the ground beneath everyone's feet. Jake stood his ground, firing his pistol until it clicked empty. He grabbed a piece of broken metal from the ground, swinging it wildly at the drones that surrounded him. His body ached and blood soaked through his shirt, but he refused to fall back. Every second he held the drone's attention gave Lyra more time to protect the ancient weapon. Lyra crouched near the machine, her hands trembling as she adjusted its controls. She didn't know how much power it had left, but she knew they couldn't afford to waste it. The beam had already destroyed one Exitherian ship, but two more loomed overhead, raining fire down on the settlement. With a deep breath, she aimed the weapon at the nearest ship and activated it again. A second beam shot into the sky, brighter and stronger this time. It struck the ship dead center, causing it to crackle with energy before exploding in a shower of sparks. Cheers erupted from the defenders, but the victory was fleeting. The third ship unleashed a wave of smaller drones, flooding the battlefield. Rachel saw the new threat and shouted orders to her soldiers. "Focus fire on those drones." Don't let them reach the weapon. She fired her rifle steadily, taking down drone after drone. Her voice carried authority, urging her team to push harder despite their exhaustion. Beside her, Kale fought with equal determination, his spear slicing through the air as he defended his people. But even their combined efforts weren't enough. The sheer number of drones overwhelmed the defenders, forcing them to retreat closer to the dome. Lyra watched in horror as the enemy closed in, her heart pounding in her chest. She glanced toward Jake, who still stood between the drones and the weapon, buying her precious seconds. "Jake, come back," she screamed, tears streaming down her face. He turned briefly, giving her a faint smile. "Keep going," he said, his voice barely audible over the chaos. Then, without hesitation, he charged forward, drawing the drones away from the machine. One by one, he took them down, but they kept coming. Finally, a drone lunged at him, knocking him to the ground. Before it could strike again, Jake pressed a button on a small device strapped to his belt. A blinding explosion erupted, destroying the drones around him, and Jake along with them. "No," Lyra cried, collapsing to her knees. For a moment, everything seemed to stop. The sound of the battle faded, replaced by a heavy silence. Then, anger surged through her veins. She clenched her fists and turned back to the weapon, her resolve stronger than ever. With renewed focus, she adjusted the controls one final time. The machine hummed loudly, its lights flickering as it prepared for another blast. This time, she aimed directly at the last remaining Scytherian ship. As the beam shot upward, the ship shuddered violently, its engine sputtering before it broke apart in a massive explosion. The defenders stared in awe as the wreckage fell from the sky, crashing far away from the settlement. The surviving drones suddenly froze, then dropped lifelessly to the ground. The battle was over. Rachel staggered toward Lyra, her face streaked with dirt and sweat. "You did it," she said, her voice filled with disbelief. Kale joined them moments later, his expression somber yet grateful. "We did it," he corrected softly. "Together." As the dust settled, the survivors gathered near the ruins. Many were injured, some too exhausted to speak. But despite their losses, there was a sense of unity among them. Humans and Vorthans stood side by side, no longer divided by fear or mistrust. Lyra knelt beside the ancient weapon, her hands resting on its surface. She whispered a quiet thank you, not just for the victory, but for Jake's sacrifice. Though he was gone, his bravery had saved them all. In the distance, the sun began to rise, casting a faint golden glow over the battered landscape. It was a new day, one filled with hope and possibility. Together, they would rebuild, not just their homes, but their trust in each other. They had faced the worst and emerged stronger, and those scars would remain. So would the bond they had forged in the heat of battle. The days that followed the battle were quiet, but not peaceful. The settlement was in ruins, its dome cracked and battered, its people weary and grieving. Bodies of both humans and Vorthans lay wrapped in cloths, waiting to be buried. Among them was Jake, his name spoken softly by those who had come to respect him. Lyra stayed close to the spot where he had fallen, her heart heavy with loss, but also gratitude. Kale called a meeting near the center of the settlement. Humans and Vorthans gathered together, their faces tired but determined. For the first time, there was no division between them, only shared pain and a shared future. Kale stood tall, his voice steady as he addressed the crowd. "We've lost much," he began, "but we've gained something too. We've learned that we're stronger together than apart. Today, we honor those who gave their lives, not just for us, but for each other." Rachel stepped forward next, her green eyes scanning the group. "Jake was one of ours, but he belonged to all of us. His courage saved this world. Let's make sure his sacrifice wasn't in vain." The survivors nodded, some wiping away tears. They knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but they also knew they couldn't turn back. Together, they began the slow process of rebuilding. Lyra took charge of restoring the ancient weapon, now silent and still. She worked alongside Daniel, a human engineer who admired her determination. "We can't rely on miracles every time," he said as they examined the machine. "But maybe we can learn from this. Maybe we can build something even better." She smiled faintly, nodding. "Something that lasts." Meanwhile, Alina continued treating the wounded, teaching Vorthan healers how to use human medicine. Her patience and kindness earned her trust, and soon she wasn't just a medic, she was a friend. Joran often helped her, learning skills he never thought he'd need. "You're good at this," Alina told him one day. "Keep practicing, and you'll save lives." As the weeks passed, small signs of progress appeared. Broken generators hummed back to life, powered by combined human and Vorthan ingenuity. Fields once barren began to sprout crops, thanks to seeds brought by the humans. Even the dome itself started to heal, patched together with scraps and care. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Lyra climbed to the top of the ruins. She held a small pendant Jake had given her, a simple metal circle etched with stars. Staring at it, she whispered, "Thank you." Then, clutching it tightly, she turned to look over the settlement. Below, humans and Vorthans worked side by side, laughing and talking like old friends. Children played near the repaired dome, their laughter echoing through the air. It was a fragile piece, but it was real. Rachel joined her a moment later, sitting quietly beside her. "Do you think we'll ever leave?" Lyra asked after a long pause. "Not yet," Rachel replied. "This place needs us. And maybe we need it too." Lyra nodded, understanding. Arethys wasn't perfect, but it was home. A new kind of home, built not just of stone and metal, but of trust and hope. Later that night, under a sky clearer than anyone had seen in years, the survivors gathered for a ceremony. They lit candles and placed them around the graves of the fallen, their soft glow lighting up the darkness. One by one, they spoke the names of those they had lost, promising to carry their memories forward. When it was Lyra's turn, she stepped forward, holding the pendant high. "Jake taught me that we're stronger when we stand together. He gave everything for us, and I won't forget that. None of us will." Her words echoed in the silence, bringing nods and murmurs of agreement. As the ceremony ended, the group lingered, unwilling to let the moment fade. For the first time in a long while, they felt a sense of belonging, not just to a place, but to each other. Above them, the stars shone brightly, watching over a world reborn. Arethys was no longer a planet of isolation or despair. It was a place of unity, resilience, and promise. And though challenges lay ahead, the people of Arethys faced them not as strangers, but as one family.